Happy Sunday, subscribers, and welcome to the live version of the note-taking and reading-taking tips. This is where we are going to implement all of the tips that I mentioned in previous videos that I've made and show you how to actually use them. Hopefully this will clarify any concerns you guys had, and today we're going to be reading a text. This is an article in the China Quarterly all about the British administration in Hong Kong. So this is how did Britain set up the political system in Hong Kong before it handed it back over to China in 1997. As some of you probably know, Hong Kong was part of the British colony, part of the British Empire. So we're going to figure out how to use the tips that I've given you to get the essence of this article as fast as possible, as quickly as possible, to make these types of notes, as you can see on the right here. This is what we're going to end up making, and this is what we're going to be reading. So let's begin. So for the sake of this video, I've taken this question, which is from a 2009 Chinese politics paper here at Oxford. So we've got, since 1997, has the nature of politics of Hong Kong changed significantly? So that is what our objective is going to be. So we're going to try and find parts of this text that are relevant to helping us answer that question. In fact, it'll probably be much easier if I take this question and I'll put it here. There we go. So now we can see that, and that's going to be our objective throughout. So first things first, we want to figure out if this article is completely relevant to helping us answer this question. Well, from the title, we know that this is going to be pre-1997 because this is during the British administration, and of course the British administration ended after 1997. So it's going to give us some historical context to help us do a comparative answer between before 1997 and after 1997, so we can judge the extent to which it has changed, the extent to which the nature of politics has changed. So to find out whether this text is completely relevant to helping us answer this question, we can read the abstract to the article, which also usually doubles as the introduction to the article. So that is this piece of text here. Just to save time, I will tell you, if you give a quick skim of this, you'll find out that this is just a quick historical introduction as to what the Hong Kong political system was like. And then here we have what was the British legacy that they left. And I've highlighted here the key things that this text is going to be talking about. It's going to be focused on the rule of law, the civil service, the economic freedom, and the democratization that Britain left before it handed Hong Kong back over. Now, instead of going from the introduction and then diving straight into the text, we're going to jump. We're going to jump down to the conclusion, which is somewhere around here. There we go. I've even highlighted it for us. So the reason you jump straight to the conclusion is because you want to see what they're going to be arguing, and then you want to see what they believe are the implications of their argument. So that way you can see where they're starting and where they're ending. If you know where they're going to start and you know where they're going to end, you can make sure that the text you're reading is going to be relevant to help you answer this question. Now, if you read the conclusion of this article, you will discover that actually the nature of politics in Hong Kong was not as great as is implied by the introduction. The British didn't set up a completely clean and efficient and uncorrupt form of government in Hong Kong. In fact, the 4 different areas that it said it was going to explore, the rule of law, the civil service, the economic freedom, and the democratization, it turns out that they were all, well, in some ways, as I've highlighted here, they weren't fully accountable, they were corrupt, and it was not very efficient. And also, if you scroll down to other bits that I've highlighted, you'll find, say, the civil service was not very clean and efficient and expertise-driven until perhaps the 1980s, which shows that the nature of politics in Hong Kong was still laced with these relics from the colonial period, and China had to deal with this. So I've probably spent about 5 minutes quickly reading the introduction and quickly skimming over the conclusion to discover that the piece is going to be exploring the rule of law, the civil service, the economic freedom, the democratization in Hong Kong, and eventually conclude that the British administration did not fully help these different areas in being as efficient and uncorrupt and promote a clean form of politics within the region. With that in mind, in my notes here, as you can see, I've quickly summarized what the argument is going to be. So when I take a glance at these notes later on, I can tell straight away what this article is going to be about. As we can see here, I've highlighted the 4 key areas that it's going to be exploring, and then shown that each of these areas was actually a hindrance to Hong Kong's post-independence development because it infringed upon the interests of the people. So when you get an argument that says, for instance, is China the complete limiting factor for political development in the interests of the people in Hong Kong? Well, turns out that they weren't, because the British also had a hand to play, and that's what this article is going to explore. As you can also see here in my notes, I've got the name of the author, the year in which this article was published, and also a quick outline as to what the article was about just in the title, so when I come to look at my notes again, I can glance through them and quickly discover that this is what this article is about. If I want to reference to it in an essay, I have the author and I have the year in which it was published. So again, I'm designing my notes around the problem that I have to solve, which is answering this essay question, and being able to know the arguments of the different authors and using those to inform your own answer. That is what we need to do for our finals essays. So I've designed the notes to achieve that goal. Let's go back to the text. So I have an idea as to what it's going to be about. Now I'm going to quickly skim through and just figure out, usually articles have headings, and if I can figure out what the headings are, I can get a feel for the general structure of this text. How long is it? How long is it exploring the different issues? I get a relative idea of the importance of the different factors that it will be exploring. So as you can see here, I've highlighted those in green. So we've got the rule of law, quickly skimming through again. We've got, so civil service is going to be there. And then I'm thinking, okay, right, there's the next one there. It's economic freedom with limited government. And then I also come across the democracy issues that's going to be exploring. And then bang, I know here is the conclusion because I read it just a second ago. Okay, so now we come to the reading stage. And this is just how I read. So feel free, if you have an amazing memory and you can read things in one go, and just retain all of the information, great. Unfortunately, I'm not as amazing. So when I'm reading, I like to have a highlighting tool. And the tool I've used is within this piece of software that just comes with a Mac. It's Preview. Just for the sake of this, we'll do it all digitally. So when I go through highlighting, I read every single word. I quickly skim over each word just to get a feel for what it's arguing. And the words that I highlight, I kind of want to make a sentence through all of the words I highlighted. I mean, it's not a very coherent sentence because at the moment it reads celebrated, high degree of autonomy, HKSAR, which stands for Hong Kong Special Administration Region, legal system has serious defects, Hong Kong were held in English. Okay, that doesn't really make much sense, but if I have read this entire text through before, from these keywords, it would stimulate the memory for me. So, okay, so from celebrated, it would seem as though that the British legal system is typically perceived as something fantastic because, I don't know, it seems to have some sort of high degree of autonomy. Okay, so this is the name of what Hong Kong is typically called. Okay, that's important for me to know because that's probably going to be referred to a lot throughout the rest of this article, so I need to know what this acronym means. Oh, actually, it turns out the legal system has serious defects. Okay, Hong Kong were held in English. Okay, so there's some sort of language barrier. It was probably such that majority of people in Hong Kong actually don't speak English, so the fact that the legal proceedings were held in English meant that there was this barrier to entry such that the people in Hong Kong couldn't understand what in the world was going on. Okay, and then there's jury service. Okay, yeah, so that links in because then people who are performing jury service, they'd have to speak English, and it turns out I've also highlighted that. So do you see how I'm building this narrative by the words that I've highlighting? Instead of going through like that, I might as well not have highlighted absolutely anything. This gives me absolutely no value whatsoever. Whereas if I'm reading through, understanding the text, and then highlighting these words, it's far more valuable. And this is what I meant by you're trying to create a sentence with the words that you're highlighting. So we have all of these different key features that I quickly highlighted here. And it turns out that the conclusion is it's not representative of society. Great. Okay. Then the conclusion to this paragraph is that there's need for sinification, which is the introduction of Chinese ideas within Hong Kong society. I may not know what that word is, so I may want to look it up. So I'll quickly get out my dictionary, either online, and quickly look up that word. I may note it down at some point in my notes. In fact, I used to, because I previously didn't know what that word meant. And then eventually when I do know what it means, I'll delete it. And then you can see how I've got a little annotation. That's what I mean by adding annotations. So when you go through the text again, you have quickly summarized everything that you're reading here and put down something that is relevant so you don't have to process it again once more. So here I've got interesting argument to use for why sinification is a good thing for Hong Kong, at least that means with respect to its legal system. You may want to start adopting the shorthands. With respect to is quite a common one. It just makes your note taking far easier and far faster. And then you eventually find that your notes may be incomprehensible to another person because you've managed to code it in a certain way, which is good and bad. It saves time, and ultimately this is going to be used for you. So if you find it beneficial, go ahead and use it. Okay, so then I carry on reading through this text, and I may find more important parts. I may be highlighting more enthusiastically than I was in earlier parts, and I'm just continuing going through. There may be some parts I just don't highlight at all because I just don't think they're relevant. For instance, I didn't deem that this was very relevant because it was quite detailed. It wasn't really helping me understand the political system. It was going to very, very specific cases. It might be useful empirical evidence, but for the sake of the purpose that I have at this moment, I didn't deem that it was helpful. Okay, so then you come on to the civil service, you do the same thing for this section, and then you just keep running through the article, really. That's what I'm doing. At this moment in time, I'm not writing really anything. I'm just doing these little annotations just so I can get a feel for what the text is about and summarize in my head and digest what it is I just read. So then when I'm reviewing the text, we'll take this instance of democracy just here. So I'm not going to read any of these highlights. I don't want to. I just want to see straight away what is this annotation saying. Say I've gone through once, I'm going through the second time, I want to start figuring out where are the important bits. Okay, so it turns out here, this part of the text explores a scandal of appointing anti-democratic members to the LegCo, which eventually formed the opposition party. I believe it was called the Liberal Party, which acted as a block against the governor's objectives. So this little note here is helping me answer this question because it shows me that, actually, it turns out that anti-democratic members were present within the LegCo even before China came around, and China just exploited that factor. So it was actually more a result of the British administration laying the foundations that China was able to use to its advantage. Great. Okay. And that's why I've added this little annotation here to act as a signpost to tell me this bit of the text is important. Okay, so you've got an idea of how I review these texts. I'm highlighting key bits that are making sentences, well, kind of disjointed sentences, that contain the essence of what that particular section was discussing, and then I add in signposts every now and then if something particularly important and relevant to answering the question comes up in the form of an annotation. Again, you can do all of this in paper. I'm just using this digitally so I can show you guys. Upon doing all of this and getting all these signposts and really quickly scanning through, I have highlighted all of the key bits that are going to be helpful in helping me answer this question. So now I want to start taking notes. If I had started by taking notes straight away, I may have wasted time on bits that weren't completely relevant in helping me answer this question because I didn't know how important particular areas of this text were in comparison to the overall picture. Having skimmed through the entire text, I know through my annotations that this section here, this is particularly important. And if I go down, well then, yeah, this section, I know it's somewhere, I know it is somewhere. This section, here, there we go, I eventually got to it. This section here is also very important. So I can begin constructing my notes in a way that makes sense and really hones in on the bits of the text that are important to know. So, as you can see, I have divided up my notes with subtitles. So we've got the rule of law, the civil service, economic freedom, democratization, which reflects the structure of the article that I am currently reading. Now, I've labeled these in points with numbers just so when I'm revising, I can go, okay, yeah, so the 6 quick points that I want to know within the realm of rule of law. Okay, yep, there are 4 within civil service. So I will make notes saying quick summaries of what it is that I've just read. That's pretty much all there is to using those tips. I've constantly thought of what was relevant to helping me answer this question. I've given a quick structure of how the article is laid out. I'm aware of what it's going to be discussing. I know what the argument is. I know what the conclusion is. And I can quickly use this information to refer to it in an essay. But I suppose what would actually be more valuable now is if I did it from scratch. Because having this thing completely completed, well, you aren't really going through how I'm making this. So let's get a different article. Okay, so now I've opened up this article called All About China's Soft Power. So this is going to be exploring, I assume, China's soft power, which is not its military might or its economic might and how it's using those to influence outcomes in the global system, but more how is it using its culture, exporting its language, using diplomacy as a means of promoting its own self-interest. Wonderfully, this article has an abstract. So as you can see here, I've quickly highlighted what the main point of this article is going to be. Okay, so from this, it seems as though, just writing over here, the argument of this article is that the use of soft power by China is an important factor in explaining, I am somewhat taking it just straight from the abstract, China's rapid increase in influence in Asia. Okay, so that's the general gist of the argument. I may adapt this as I begin to read more of the text. I may add in just extra features into that. We'll see. Okay, so quickly reading through this, we've got, okay, right, soft power, pivotal. We've got, okay, so apparently it was using 24 Chinese TV. Okay, it's got language study. It's got, it's using participation in multilateral organizations. So I might want to note down that. So we've got uses of soft power. So we've got a couple of instances here. So we've got that China apparently has set up a 24-hour Chinese TV and radio broadcasting to Southeast Asian countries. And then I also may want to add in increased aid to region, and then it's also establishing institutions to promote Chinese language. There we go. So I've got some lovely empirics there of uses of China's soft power. Quickly scamming down again, it would seem as though that China is positive. So right, it seems as though that these countries here are viewing China as a positive force, which is different from before when China was viewed as a negative force acting in the global system, trying to change the global order. So this shows a progression in China's soft power, so I should probably note that down. China is being perceived more positively by Asian countries. And this is as of the BBC World Service poll, where poll 2004. View China's global influence as positive. Okay, and now it's going through as to what has it been doing to improve its positive image. So we've got rapid economic growth, regional policy, diplomatic ideas, peaceful rise and development, and then we've got China's rise as a global regional power. Okay, so I may want to quickly note that down. So I might want to just quickly say that consequence of China's economic ties to region, diplomatic ideas, and commitment to peaceful rise and development. Okay, and now I've got here a quick note, so I might want to check these out. Oh, it turns out that when I was reading this article, I really like these definitions of hard power and soft power. Now, these are concepts within international relations, and they're defined in different ways. It turns out that I quite like this way of defining things. So I might quickly note down here what is meant by hard power and soft power. So this is military and economic might. And this one is the ability to get what you want through attraction rather than coercion or payments. Okay, great. And now the reason to include these definitions, or why I thought they were useful, because in an essay I need to define what I mean by the terms that I'm using. So if I'm saying, yeah, China's soft power is amazing, well, then the examiner is probably going to ask, well, what do you mean by soft power? Why is that so amazing? Which is why I want to have this definition here. So again, I've kept in mind my overall objective, which is ultimately answering an essay question in my exam, and I'm making notes on things that are relevant to achieving that objective. In this case, it's noting down these definitions, which might be useful in the long run. Okay, so now the text goes on to discussions of soft power in China. Again, I've highlighted different sections here, so I'd quickly make notes on those things. And I've got loads of signposting here. So I probably quickly note down and the fact that China entered the World Trade Organization in 2001, how that helped increase its soft power, how China's development is dependent on 3 factors. Okay, so I'm probably going to want to note down what these 3 factors are in my notes here. Yep, so there you go, you guys. There is a quick demonstration of how I go from reading these articles, from knowing absolutely nothing about the topic, to quickly identifying what the argument is, and putting it down in my notes, who's written it, when is it written, and then quickly scanning through, highlighting things, getting an idea of what the different sections are within the text. Also, having read the conclusion first, I know where the text is going to end, and then with all of that knowledge, I can go through and make very succinct notes that have relevant empirics that are clear, concise, and will help me with my overall objective, which is to answer the essay question. I hope you guys have found this helpful. I hope that you guys enjoyed learning a little bit about Hong Kong and Chinese politics and China's use of soft power in politics. Do let me know if anything was not clear in the video or if you'd like anything clarified. In the meantime, add all of your comments and questions down in the comment section of this video, and I will see you on Sunday, subscribers. In case you guys have not seen the reading tips and writing tips video, here they are for you. So feel free to click through if you'd like to know what skills and tips I was actually implementing in this video.